Hello and welcome to the Autocar Show. Now we all know the big Indian penchant for owning SUVs. But with the kind of traffic and parking problems that we have, not always easy to own a big, beefy SUV. Now manufacturers always hone into the little nuances of the market and are quick to bring out products that offer the perfect compromise. So came the crossovers. Well, the first bunch of them, like the Fabia Scout, the Cross Polo and the Etios Cross, were really hatches that offered more because they were just cosmetic changes. But then came the Fiat Avventura. Now this one promised to be a true crossover because not only did it have the cosmetic changes to look the part, but it also had an altered height and suspension to play the part. Well, quick enough, the active i20 from Hyundai has joined the fray. So it's but obvious we had to pit these two together to find out which one you should buy. You want to know? Well, watch on. The Avventura, based off the Punto, has changed its entire look to be a true crossover. It's higher off the ground and beefier in its appearance. The eye-catcher really being the tail-mounted spare wheel. Also pumping up the appearance is an entirely reworked front bumper with the tough cladding and a 4-skid plate. There are also the roof rails and the larger wheel arches that house the 16-inch alloys with chunkier rubber. With a ground clearance of 205 mm, it rivals the likes of the Duster. The i20 Active likewise is based off the hatchback and seems to have all the beef the Avventura has, minus the tailgate mounted spare wheel. It's higher off the ground by 20 mm when compared to its hatch sibling, giving it a 190 mm ground clearance overall. It has the roof rails, the matte cladding, 4 skid plates and the 16-inch alloys too. Both front and rear bumpers are new with big round fog lamps and the headlamps are now LED with daytime running lights. The front grille is also more aggressive and other flourishes are a chunky fuel filler lid and blackened C-pillars. Both look the part for sure, with the Avventura gaining advantage from that spare wheel. Now the interiors of the Avventura have some funky bits like the 3 meters in the center, compass, gyro, approach angle, and of course this 4-looking leather across the center part of the dash and the doors. But at the end of the day, I feel it comes across looking as a little low rent because this lands up looking like Rexine. The color on the dash is different to the color on the door. The color of the door really doesn't match the door panel either. It's quite a mishmash on the inside, and plastics lower down the dash are also quite low rent. But it's not only that. Actually, the bigger problem really is the ergonomics, where there are a host of issues. The steering, to begin with, in its lowest position, and there's only height adjust, is quite high. The dashboard is high, so it impedes visibility. The A-pillar also causes a problem when you're going around corners. The seat squab comes into your leg. The steering is too close to the driver. As a result, I'll end up pushing my seat back, which means I have to really stretch my foot to press the clutch. Bonus is that the clutch is light enough. And of course, there's no place to put a bottle in the door. There's no place to put things like a wallet or a phone because the only actual space is beneath the handbrake. And if you try using that, it impedes the handbrake. That's just it. At first glance, the Avventura's interior looks fresh and interesting, but closer inspection reveals its flaws. The active i20 just trumps the Avventura on quality and space. To begin with, the driver's seat is comfortable. Driving position comes easy with a reach and height adjustable steering. The steering is a nice chunky leather-wrapped one that adds some style. The dash itself is two-tone with the top being a high-quality non-reflective black surface. The blue lower half is a bit out there and will not be to everyone's liking. However, it's a neat, clean layout and storage is aplenty. There's a 1-liter bottle holder in each of the doors, 2 large cup holders behind the gear lever, a cubby hole for your phone below the aircon, and lots more pockets. But where the i20 really scores over the Avventura is backseat space. Now the rear seat is where the active i20 really shows its strengths. Look at the legroom. I mean, there's loads of space here even for quite a tall person. Headroom is good. The width of the bench is quite nice. In fact, 3 will fit in even though it might be a slight tight squeeze. The Avventura feels like a tighter squeeze in comparison. Legroom is considerably less and thigh support is not as good too on the seats. Despite the active i20 actually opening up more space in its back seat, it also gives more space for storage at the back. Well, when it comes to boot space, the Active i20 is the winner with larger space. In fact, you can fit a couple of suitcases in here quite comfortably. Now, not only does the Avventura have less space, but opening it and getting in, especially when you have bags in your hands, is quite cumbersome, not to mention the fact that it's smaller. But it doesn't stop there, because when you have to close it, there's this heavy tailgate and this button that you have to press that requires quite a bit of effort to close. Quite a procedure. Well, so far the Active is really racking up the points faster than the Avventura. But let's see how they match up on the road. Under the hood, the Avventura uses the Fiat 1.3-litre multijet, making 92 bhp and a respectable 21.31 kgm of torque. While the Active uses a 1.4-litre 89 bhp unit, punching out 22.4 kgm of torque. The i20's engine is one that makes driving comfortable and easy in any kind of situation. It doesn't leap off the line in the sense that it does have a small amount of lag, typical of a turbo diesel. Even below the 2000 RPM mark, it's not like there's any pronounced lag. It's just that the power delivery is a bit gentler. There is enough power off boost as well. You can amble around in higher gears at lower RPMs. And as long as you're gentle with the throttle, you'll get a move on easily too. That's the trick. Gentle on the throttle till you get past the 2000 RPM mark. And then the engine gets into the meat of the band and performs pretty well. It may not have the outright punch of the Avventura, but it delivers power in a much smoother manner, which is what makes it more drivable. The tall 6th gear also gives the Hyundai a good cruising capability, and it does well on an open stretch of highway. Now in the Avventura, the lag is more pronounced. And if you're ambling around at lower RPMs, higher gears, and you want to get a move on, you will really have to work the gears. And that's not a great thing either, because the gearbox is quite notchy. The Avventura, in contrast, feels almost dead below the 2500 RPM mark, after which the power comes in one strong whack. There's a sudden surge, and this uneven delivery along with the lag makes it really tiresome in traffic despite the lighter clutch. However, once you're past that 2500 RPM mark, the Avventura punches out power much stronger and it feels better on highway runs. Keep it in the meat of the band and you don't feel shortchanged at all. But when it comes to refinement, it's really the Active i20 that scores again. The Avventura's engine makes itself heard not only at idle, but even when you're higher up the revs. Well, so far the battle seems a bit lopsided, with the Active i20 shining brighter. But when it comes to dynamics, it's a different story. The i20 Active steering is typically Hyundai. It's light, which means cutting through traffic, overtaking, parking, and basically city driving is a breeze. But when you're on a winding section of road like I am now, and you require some cornering and quick directional changes, well, it's not really the most enthusiastic. The steering also doesn't turn in consistently, which really isn't great for spirited driving. Drive at a gentler pace and it doesn't feel so bad. The Active rides over the roads quite well too when you're at slower speeds, meaning in the city it will keep the backseat passengers quite comfy. However, pick up the pace and it does tend to bounce around and get more unsettled. When you're going around a series of corners, it's really the Avventura that thrills more. The steering responds better, stability is far more around the corners, and it just gives you a bigger sense of security. But that steering that weighs up well around corners ends up feeling quite heavy in city traffic conditions and when you have to park. At At lower speeds in the city, the suspension of the Avventura feels clunky and sounds it too. So it doesn't feel as good as the Active. But when you pick up the pace even just a little, it smothers everything that the roads have to throw at it, and the ride gets much better. The Avventura does have the better overall ride handling package. Now, before we sum it up, let's take a look at the feature list and prices. The diesel Hyundai i20 Active in the top SX trim costs 8.89 lakh rupees. It's significantly more expensive than the Avventura, but you do get a lot of standard equipment. What works in the Hyundai's favor further is its wide sales and service network and higher fuel efficiency figures. The Avventura diesel in its top emotion specs costs 36,000 less than the Active SX. Well, after having put these two cars together and comparing all their facts and figures, it's quite clear that the Active i20 is the one that's overpriced and comes at a premium. But the fact remains is once you're inside this car, you feel that premiumness. Be it the interiors, be it the space and comfort, be it the drivability, or be it the refinement, it definitely feels notches better than the Avventura. Yes, it's not the better handling of the two, but it's a compromise you can live with because on its own, it really isn't bad at all. At the end of the day, when you're inside the Active i20, it makes you feel good, it gives you that premium feel, and you're happy to be behind the wheel, which is why it's our winner of the day.